The main takeaway from Louisville's ACC Kickoff Media Day is that Tyler Shough fully believes in the Louisville Cardinals. But more importantly, the Louisville Cardinals fully believe in Tyler Shough. More coming up on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on? Welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As we get closer to football, the sports have stopped sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel continues to hook up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, want to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Head coach Jeff Brohm, quarterback Tyler Shough, edge rusher Ashton Gillotte, and cornerback Quincy Riley represented the Louisville Cardinals at ACC Kickoff, the football media day this week, I should say, not in the past tense just yet, but this week as we get closer to the 2024 college football season. Some interesting comments were made. The main takeaways for me is that Tyler Shough fully believes in Louisville, but it's more important that Louisville is fully believing in Tyler Shough. We'll break down what he said, what Brohm said about the relationship there, and also I thought Jeff Brohm's comments about the transfer portal were extremely interesting, something that Louisville fans would want to hear and get some clarification on. We'll break it down in the final segment. For starters, if you were going into this ACC Kickoff Media Day for Louisville and hoping to hear something that was going to blow you away, something that you weren't expecting to hear, chances are you probably ended up disappointed. I mean, it's not necessarily a surprise. Usually these media opportunities are just an opportunity to get coaches and players, in front of the camera to be able to speak about their program and drive up TV ratings for the national networks, to be able to get fan bases excited and just overall to get ready for college football. So a lot of these questions that were asked, and this is no disrespect to the media that was there, but they don't cover Louisville on a closer scale that the local media would. So a lot of these questions were some that you would expect, the thoughts on the ending of last year, how you install your culture. What are your thoughts on your transfer portal class? A lot of generic questions that you pretty much expect on a yearly basis. However, I don't think that all of the answers that we were expecting were totally, were just totally unnotable. I think that there were a couple things that Brohm said, that the players said, that I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. And the main thing is sort of that reciprocated belief in Tyler Shough and the Louisville program by each other. Shuck mentioned some stuff that I thought was pretty interesting, and Jeff Brohm sort of reiterated that from the other side. So Tyler Shough stated basically that he believes in Louisville for 3 different reasons. And I want to sort of break that down a little bit because I think it's important to discuss this, because Tyler Shough is one of the main measuring sticks of how this season is going to go. I mean, the quarterback obviously plays a huge role. Jack Plummer did last season, and Louisville is looking for an upgrade at the signal caller position. And a lot of fans are focusing on Shough because it's obvious. It's human nature. The quarterback position is the most important on the field. So you want to hear about Tyler Shough. Anytime he's brought up, I feel like fans listen just a little bit closer. They tune their ears just a little bit more frequent to what they're hearing. So I thought that Shough made some interesting comments, and I also think that Jeff Brohm stated some things that I think Louisville fans would ultimately want to hear. Now, nothing groundbreaking that's going to be like, what? But at the end of the day, it's definitely relieving to hear. Tyler Shough believes in Louisville for 3 reasons. getting developed by Jeff Brohm. There's the belief in Jeff and Brian Brohm and their background with the NFL, college football, etc. At the quarterback position, he believes that team success will then trickle into individual success. So the ability to have a good amount of team and individual success this season. And he also believes in the program because of seeing some common connections. I'm going to read to you what he said about why he decided to come to Louisville, because I think ultimately it sort of shed light on why he ended up coming here, and could just sort of tell you exactly what you wanted to know about, well, why was this the best fit for him? He said, I think for me, now the question states that obviously you want to end on a high note. Why Louisville? Why was that the fit that made sense after Texas Tech? He says, I think for me, it was being able to play under Coach Jeff Brohm, Brian Brohm, their pedigree with quarterbacks in the past, and being able to put them in the league and keep them in the league. Their offensive system being a little bit more complex, putting a lot on my plate. We run a lot of different formations, personnel groups. I think that was really attractive to me to come in there and contribute to the team with a high standard. There was no doubt in my mind that this is where I want to be. So you see that trust with the Brohms, and that's sort of become a narrative, not really at Louisville, but all over the country, is that, Jeff Brohm will really never have an issue bringing a quarterback in because he is, revered as a really, really solid developer at the position. The quarterback whisperer, so to speak. I'm not sure if I would go with that, but nonetheless, a quarterback at the position, he's not going to, steer you in the wrong direction. So I like that. He mentioned that, there are goals to be able to go out and win an ACC championship, get in the playoff, win a national championship. A lot of the goals that you would hope to hear. He does mention that they've been some of my favorite coaches because they played the position, been behind the face mask. He says, when we're watching film, it's not like you should have done this better. This is the look. It's like, I would have thrown this. I see the coverage as this. They offer a unique perspective to where they played it. They've done it at a high level in college and the NFL. So obviously the trust is there for the Brohms, their reputation for developing the position, for playing the position, and having some really good offenses. Also, I think that, he pretty much leads into it. Individual success is brought by team success. Like if your team wins 11 games and you make it to an ACC title game and you ultimately get into the playoff, then you're going to get that individual recognition and that success from ultimately just having that amount of team success. Now, is it the other way around? I mean, you could have a phenomenal season and the team not be great, which that would probably mean that the defense isn't that great, because if an offensive quarterback is having a really good season and Louisville's struggling, then it really doesn't add up. So understanding that he understands the opportunity at hand here, going to Louisville that will have a chance to compete for another ACC championship appearance. I think that you're sort of like one of those dark horse teams to maybe sneak into the college football playoff, a better chance than a team like Texas Tech where he was at. And you go to an offensive play caller that you feel like is going to prepare you not only for the next level, but to put you in a position right away to have a good amount of success. It's a really good roster. Now, ultimately, Louisville did a lot of their transfer portal stuff after Shuck committed, but still, it kind of adds all together. So there's the belief in the Brohms. There's the belief in, the situation that he would be jumping into. I also thought it was pretty interesting. He has common connections to the program, so it's the belief in the program in general. He mentions how he has formed a relationship with Jack Plummer, Louisville's quarterback from last year. They grew up not really far from each other at all, and played high school ball with Jawar Jordan. I know that he committed and wanted to try to persuade Jordan to stay for one more season. Jawar ended up opting to go to the NFL draft, which it is what it is. Probably the best decision for his career, which I'm fine with, as you should be too. But you wonder, does Shuck give that much thought to the opportunity of coming to Louisville had it not been for guys before him already being here, like Jawar and Plummer. I'm not necessarily so sure that that would be the case. In fact, I think that, you heard how he talked about the Brohm, so ultimately you could be led to believe that he still would have Louisville in that, sort of top group. But those two pre-existing relationships are really, really key here. And I think that all three of these things sort of combine together to bring Shuck to Louisville, and ultimately has, added to the belief that he has in this program, in this staff, in this team, and in this situation. But like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, I think it's more important that Louisville reciprocates that belief. Jeff Brohm and the Cardinals fully believe in the veteran signal caller. I know that some people have their worries and concerns, but let's hear what Jeff Brohm had to say at ACC Kickoff. We'll break down some of his quotes after we tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And before we get into the next segment, if you continually find yourself watching Fox Sports or ESPN and you have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting, it's really not, your cup of tea, you need to make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today, it brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And continuing to break down Louisville's ACC Kickoff Media Day appearances on this Friday edition of the show. Once again, thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I mentioned in the last segment that Tyler Shough is fully bought into Louisville. He believes fully in the process, the situation, the coaching staff, the program itself. But more importantly, I think it's more significant to point out that Jeff Brohm, I've got the hiccups again. Jeff Brohm and the Louisville Cardinals are bought in to Tyler Shough. They fully believe in the veteran signal caller, and that's important because a lot of the fan base is not. And let's call it how it is. The fan base won't be bought in until they see him on the field. Because in the fan base's mind, you can't really blame them either, although they still won 10 games. The fan base says, well, Jeff Brohm went out and got Jack Plummer. And as good as he was at times, there was a lot to be desired. Let's just leave it at that. So going out and getting Tyler Shough, how do we know that this also won't limit Louisville's ceiling? Well, I think that, for one, the fan base is justified in thinking that, although I think that I have been under the line of thinking that I'm just going to trust Jeff Brohm until he shows that I can't do that. He's very good with coaching, teaching, and developing players at the quarterback position. Jeff Brohm has bought into Tyler Shough, the athlete, Tyler Shough, the player, and Tyler Shough, the leader, the person. And he has always spoken very highly of him. And if Brohm, with multiple quarterbacks out there, and there were transfer portal guys that had expressed interest in Louisville, that Brohm opted to go with Tyler Shough over, if he did indeed go with Tyler Shough, it was for a reason. Obviously, you have to stay healthy. The best ability is availability. And just from Louisville going out and bringing him in, Jeff Brohm making it a point of emphasis to bring Tyler Shough to Louisville, that is the stamp of approval on his health. That is him saying, you know what, he's had some health issues in the past. A lot of it's been sort of freak accidents rather than recurring issues with ligaments or joints or bones. It's been freak accidents, a broken fibula, broken collarbone. It is what it is, just some really bad luck. But by bringing him in, Jeff Brohm is saying, look, I vouch for him. I vouch for the health. So he believes in Tyler Shough, the athlete. He also believes in Tyler Shough, the player. Looking at what he said about Shuck, I think that it was pretty, on par with what I'd expected. But he said this when asked, bringing in Tyler at quarterback, what can you say? What have you seen from him at Texas Tech? Why was he the right fit for your offense? Brohm says, well, we're excited about Tyler and what he brings to the table. Anytime you can bring a veteran quarterback that's been there and done that, handled adversity, had ups and downs, been able to experience that, has had great success, but also a few failures along the way. He's battle-tested, and we're excited about it. To this point, he's come in and been a great leader. He comes here with a purpose. He has 1 year to play college football, and he wants to go out with a bang. I think if we can play well around him and continue to improve our football team, he will definitely play at a high level. Brohm goes on to say, we're excited about what he brings to the table. We want him to have the best year he possibly can. It's up to us coaches to put him in the best position to do that, but we're going to work really hard at it. There will be people that are concerned about whether or not Tyler Shough can lead Louisville to higher ceilings up until he steps foot on the field. Honestly, I'm sort of in that same I'm in that same group, because you're bringing in so many transfers. Inevitably, some of them are not going to pan out. And I hope like hell that we are not talking about the quarterback not panning out here in a couple months. From what I've seen on film, what we saw in the spring game, if Tyler Shough stays healthy, he's going to be really good. And Brohm mentioning that he's battle-tested and having dealt with so much adversity as being some of the reasons why he brought him in, I thought that was pretty intriguing, because it was sort of an angle that I hadn't really considered as much. You more so think about the ability, but going to the portal to get a one-year player, you have to make sure he's ready. You have to make sure that he's going to be able to help your team when you face adversity. Late in the season, it felt like the USC game, the Kentucky game, the Florida State game. Jack Plummer struggled, and I think that Louisville is looking to bring in a quarterback that, when things go south, this guy's going to rise to the occasion. And Jeff Brohm is sort of using the fact that he has gone through so much in his college career with the injuries and just having to work his way back from those. He's using that as sort of a means to justify bringing in a guy that is battle-tested. And believing in his health is one thing. But Jeff Brom's not going to bring in a mediocre quarterback that he doesn't believe can't lead his offense. I think the Jack Plummer thing was sort of a very interesting situation, because Jeff Brohm literally had just taken the job a couple weeks prior. He wasn't able to really build a relationship. He had to build, or was able to build a lot of relationships. He had to build a lot on the fly. He put together a staff pretty quickly and put together a really good transfer portal class. I wouldn't really keep referencing Jack Plummer as a way to sort of discredit Jeff Brohm's ability to scout the position and pick a player that he feels can lead this offense. Brohm believes in Shuck the athlete, and Shuck the player, and Shuck as a leader. He says, to this point, he's come in and been a great leader, put in the work. He's gained the respect of his teammates by working hard with them, studying football with them, arranging that, and making sure our players are doing it. So obviously there's a personal aspect to why he brought in Tyler, and that leadership is something that he feels can help this team. So you could say that, well, of course a quarterback's going to believe in the program that he committed to. Of course that coach is going to believe in the quarterback he brought in. I think it's fair to say that. But I also think it's fair to discuss that, because a lot of fans are kind of wondering, man, what can we expect? Who knows until the season starts? But it's worth noting that there is belief in each other on both sides. One of the main things that Cardinal fans will take away from this media availability was Jeff Brohm's comments on the transfer portal. And that is where things get very interesting, because a good amount of fans will disagree. We'll talk about what he said coming up after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. We're getting closer and closer to the college football season. However, we're not there yet. The sports still aren't sporting like we want them to. However, again, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. This summer, FanDuel has been hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. I love the boosts as it relates to baseball strikeout numbers. Just won a 4-leg parlay with Padres and Orioles money line, and then having Corbin Burns and Dylan Cease to have over five strikeouts. Corbin Burns made me sweat a little bit, but Dylan Cease threw a no-hitter, and it was all gravy from there. Get your big win now by heading over to FanDuel.com and starting to make the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And continuing into the final segment of this Friday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Once again, thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. One of the main things that people will find interesting about what Jeff Brohm said at ACC Kickoff Football Media Days all relates to the transfer portal. For the second straight offseason, Louisville has been coined as one of the top winners, so to speak, in the transfer portal. And it's boding well for the team. However, it's making a good amount of people wonder whether or not this is a sustainable business model for ensuring long-term success. In fact, that was a segment on this show a couple months ago. And I said that, it's going to differ every single year in terms of Brohm's tactics. And he sort of reiterated that, and he echoed those sentiments. When he was asked about the transfer portal, his main quote, the first thing he said is, "Our philosophy is we want to win now. We want to win this year. Yes, you can build for the future and get your young players ready to play, which is great, but you want to win now." He goes on to say, not only do our fans want that, but your own team wants that, whether it comes to building a roster. We have some really good guys coming back that have done a good job for us. You know what? I think they want to win. It's up to us coaches to build the best team and surround them with the best teammates. He goes on to say, we're not scared to change the roster, improve our football team, whether they're starters or they provide great competition. They play a role. Everyone we brought in has been with a purpose. To this point, we've liked what we've seen. That's what we believe in. Sure, we're always going to take high school prospects and continue to do that. With this transfer portal having two different portals, people can leave and go when they want. There's nothing wrong with that. Some guys leave to get more playing time. Other guys leave for other reasons. you have to be able to adapt and adjust. I think we've done a pretty good job at that, end quote. We'll have to break down there in a very little amount of time. For starters, I think that fans are tired of seeing players transfer to a program. This is not just Louisville. Transfer to a program, stay for as little as a couple days, stay for as long as a couple months, and leave before the next season even starts. It's like, well, what are we doing here? And I know that the bidding wars have been exhausting for fans to pay attention to, having to worry about re-recruiting your roster every single season, every single off season. I get it. It frustrates me as well. Jeff Brohm says it's, everything's not ideal. This is a weird time in college football, but you either adjust to the times or you get passed up. And Louisville said, I'll be damned if I don't adjust to the times. So Jeff Brohm is doing just that. And if Louisville feels that they can get better every single season by bringing in transfers, and they believe that they can instill the culture that Jeff Brohm mentions. It's all about providing an atmosphere, an environment where your guys want to work hard at football. That's what he says. And there's a lot of vetting the personal side. Some don't fit what you're looking for on the personal level, and we saw some players transfer out after committing to Louisville just this past offseason. I think that ultimately it's on a by-year basis. Brohm mentions that depending on what you lose to the portal and to the draft will affect how you utilize the portal. If you know you're going to bring a good amount of your core back, if you're going to bring a lot of players back, and you have a decent high school class coming in, you're not going to use the portal as much. But if things are flip-flopped and you're losing a lot of pieces, the high school class is going to take a lot of time for those guys to play. You're going to be portal heavy when it comes to recruiting. So Brohm has made things very fluid. Now, I would like to see more attention to the high school side of things because I think that it takes less of a bidding war having to retain your players than it does having to recruit brand new guys that don't have that relationship that you can use to your advantage when it comes to bidding wars. And I would like to get some 4-star level guys that you can come in and develop. And I think ultimately there's a balance, and where that balance will be for Louisville, I don't think that there is a straightforward answer. I think it's on a by-year basis. But if you're expecting the Cardinals to go back to like the traditional way of recruiting, to where they're signing 25 every high school class, they're only bringing in about anywhere from 5 to 10 transfers, I just don't think that that's going to be a realistic allocation to look at. I think you're going to see the majority of the guys will bring in. At best, I think it's half and half. But ultimately, this is not the answer you want to hear if you are pro high school recruiting versus, switching your team every season. It's like, okay, are you going to be able to win with those high school recruits? Because what happens if you bring in those high school recruits and either they don't get the playing time early on and they transfer, or they just get poached by larger schools? That's why you bring in transfers, to be able to compete right away. So I don't disagree with what Brohm's saying. I do wish there was a little bit more emphasis on high school recruiting and bringing in some larger rated recruits, or higher rated recruits, I should say. But nonetheless, I'm going to let Jeff Brohm cook. And that's all that comes to it. On tomorrow's episode of the show, there will be a Saturday and a Sunday episode. Just a heads up, we will get back into the position previews, starting with linebackers on Saturday and cornerbacks on Sunday. Monday will likely be safeties, and we'll get into the remaining talk as we conclude the month on Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the two. I don't know. There's going to be a pretty interesting content scheduling going on in August, because we're at the time now to where we're in that no man's land of there's stuff to talk about, but at the same time there's not. We have a couple of series that we're going to conduct, but nonetheless, I'm rambling. I'm going to end that now. Everyone have a great start to your weekend. We'll see you right back here